The Ethiopian government has formally extended a ceasefire agreement to Tigray rebels, a group that has been at war with the government for quite some time now. Abiy Ahmed government has called for ceasefire to enable the resumption of basic services to the war-stricken north region. The move comes after a committee established in June to explore the possibility of talks with Tigrayan rebels said that it had drawn up a peace proposal in a bid to end the war that erupted in November 2020. The country's peace panel said in order to ensure sustained provision of humanitarian aid, facilitating the resumption of basic services and resolving the conflict peacefully, concluding a ceasefire agreement is essential, which in turn would lay the foundation for future political dialogue. The Ethiopian government's announcement came on the same day as the World Health Organization described the situation in Tigray as the worst disaster. However, the Tigray People's Liberation Front has dismissed the committee's proposals at obfuscation, and rebels claim that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had shown no real appetite for dialogue and that resumption of basic services to the region of 6 million people were must before dialogue could begin. The TPLF has accused the Ethiopian forces of actively provoking them on various fronts by defying their promise to create an environment to enable peaceful negotiations. The fight between Ethiopia and Tigray rebels has eased since a truce was declared at the end of March that allowed the resumption of international aid convoys to the region, as the war-battered region has suffered desperate food shortages and is without access to basic services such as electricity, communications and banking. Now, the war in northern Ethiopia was unleashed when Abiy Ahmed ordered troops to topple the TPLF, accusing rebels of attacking federal army camps. It followed months of tensions between the government and the TPLF, which dominated Ethiopian politics for 3 decades until Abiy took office in 2018. The conflict has killed an untold number of people and left millions in need of humanitarian aid. Abiy's government says any negotiations must be led by the Africa Union's Horn of Africa. However, the rebels want outgoing Kenyan president to mediate. So the Ethiopian government has formally extended a ceasefire agreement to the Tigray rebels. Abiy Ahmed government has called for ceasefire to enable the resumption of basic services to the war-stricken northern region. This move comes after a committee established in June to explore the possibility of talks with Tigrayan rebels and said that it had drawn up a peace proposal in a bid to end the war that erupted in November 2020. As per the country's peace panel, in order to ensure sustained provision of humanitarian aid, facilitating the resumption of basic services and resolving the conflict peacefully, concluding a ceasefire agreement is essential, which in turn would then lay the foundation for future political dialogue. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, however, has dismissed the committee's proposal. The rebels claim that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had not shown any real appetite for dialogue, and that the resumption of basic services to the region of 6 million people was must before the dialogue could begin. Now, for more on this, we're being joined by our correspondent, Coletta Wanjohi from Addis Ababa. Thank you so much for joining us, Coletta. The rebels claim that Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has shown no real appetite for dialogue. Do you see this proposal of talks yielding any significant results on ground?
Well, what we're having right now is both sides, both the government and the rebel faction now putting blame game on each other. Already the government on Wednesday briefed diplomats, international diplomats here in Addis Ababa, and said that they still have the appetite for the peace talks, and also said they've already come up with what they call the peace proposal that they would present as soon as possible to the AU Special Representative for the Horn of Africa, who has been trying to do shuttle diplomacy between the government and the rebel forces. On the other side, we also saw the rebel forces saying that the government is talking about this, yet still there are no efforts. They use the word provoking their troops on the ground. So what we have right now is quite a blame game. We are yet to see if they will come to a compromise.
Right, absolutely. Also, WHO chief says that racism is behind the lack of attention paid to the plight of civilians in Ethiopia's war-shattered Tigray. What is your assessment of the humanitarian crisis and the role of the international community?
Well, according to the United Nations, there are about 9 million people over 9 million people in that area in the northern region of Ethiopia that have been affected by this conflict that began in November 2020. The World Health Organization is just reiterating what it has been saying before, although this time we are seeing the WHO director being more stern and also bringing in the aspect of the color. Is it because of the color of the people of Tigray, that's why they're suffering, and that kind of takes this a notch higher. So the WHO arguments are that people are not getting enough services, health is an issue, as well as other humanitarian aspects. But with time, analysts are saying probably if the government lives up to its own words, saying that it is beginning to restore services in the north, maybe then the WHO director will not have to complain very much again in the future. So it is a matter of time to see if the basic services will start resuming in that region.
Right, Valletta, that remains to be seen. Thank you so much for joining us on this broadcast with all the updates. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.